What is going on, my fellow navigators, and welcome back to another video. With all of the recent developments that have been going on over this last week or so, I've been getting a ton of questions from the community asking me, PokéNav, do you think that the recent presidential election will affect the Pokemon card market? Now, don't worry, guys. I'm not going to be getting into any political talk here today. This really has a lot less to do with the overall election itself and more of how the election and the economy are intertwined and how the economy as a whole can and may affect the Pokemon card market moving on into the future. But before we dive into today's topic, guys, go ahead and do me a favor. Give me that double slap attack, one for that like button, one for that subscribe button, and if you want to be notified each and every time I drop a news related to Pokemon card investing, go ahead and thunder punch that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Now, I'm sure many of you are asking yourselves, how in the world could something as disparate as the presidential election and Pokemon cards have anything in common, and how could one possibly influence the other? And as I said, this has less to do with the actual election itself and more to do with the economy as a whole. So as you guys know, my background is in finance, and a big aspect of being an advisor, of being a financial expert, is also tracking very closely the overall economy, because that will give you very good indications on where the market is headed. Now, one of the things that we know for sure with elections is there is a lot of uncertainty. And that's really the big thing that I want to stress here today, and that may affect the overall Pokemon card market, is this overall uncertainty in the economy and where other financial markets are headed. And typically what we see when there is a lot of uncertainty is investors tend to pull out of their standard investments, their stocks, their bonds, you put a lot of money in short-term reserves, but they also put a lot more of their interests in alternative assets. And if you guys watched my recent podcast with Polish Rob, which I highly recommend that you do, we went in pretty deep on this very topic of alternative assets. And when I say an alternative asset, it's just something kind of outside of the standard, stock market, some of the investments that many people have in their investment accounts or their retirement accounts. Now, in the past, what we typically see for many investors is that when there is uncertainty, they typically move a lot of their holdings into things like gold and silver. That has been a common commodity that many people will move their holdings into. And typically there's an inverse relationship there. Typically, if the market is doing very well, then the price of gold and silver goes down, and just the opposite. If the stock market is doing very poorly, the price of gold and silver does go up. And just recently, gold and silver, gold more specifically, hit a record $2,000 per ounce. Now, why do I bring this up here today? Well, if you guys have been tracking this market over the last year, in general collectibles, but more specifically Pokemon cards, this has become a very viable business and investment direction that many people are heading. More and more people are entering into the market, and more people are finding, especially investors are finding, that Pokemon cards do offer them at the very least, a nice hedge against some of their other investments out there. So you're starting to see more people migrate into this arena. Now, as far as the economy is concerned, moving forward, we don't know exactly how things are going to change with this new administration. So again, you've got people who are trepidatious about that and are looking to invest their assets in another area, as I said, at the very least as part of a hedge. And so I think you're going to see much in the past that we saw with gold and silver. I think it is very possible that over the course of this next year that you will see an even greater influx of new investors into this market. And like I said, more generally speaking, collectibles, but more specifically with Pokemon cards. And it's because Pokemon, the TCG, especially vintage products, have become, and people have realized that it is an appreciable asset. And therefore, they see that there is an opportunity to be had. So as far as this upcoming year is concerned, I think we can definitely expect more and more people entering into the Pokemon card market. And what does that mean? Well, the supply itself is going to stay relatively the same, especially when you're looking at vintage products. That's going to stay the same. Really, the only products that could potentially change are ultra modern and reprints for those particular products. So supply is going to stay the same. Demand is going to increase pretty tremendously. And so essentially what you will have is a shortage of products. And whenever we see that in economic cycles, that leads to price increases. So I think this is one facet that we definitely have to pay attention to when we move on into 2021. And as I said, it's not so much to necessarily do with the election itself, but more about how the election can have an impact on the economy and how that can potentially trickle down to the Pokemon card market. Now, furthermore, along with market uncertainty and many new investors that potentially could be entering into the hobby in the near future, when we're looking at other factors from a macroeconomic approach, we also have to take into consideration the stimulus package that is slated to happen in early 2021. So we do know that there are plans for another big stimulus in the form of stimulus checks. And when we look back on the history of this year in 2020, one of the big surges in price for the Pokemon card market was back in March, which was around the same time that many people were receiving their stimulus checks. And the fact that we are going to be receiving another round of these, I think only lends to the demand that we are going to have for products. And again, supply for the most part is going to stay relatively the same. And then you add on top of that more money essentially being pumped into the economy through stimulus packages, market uncertainty for other investors out there that are going to be exploring alternative assets. This is really going to drive up the demand for product while that supply stays relatively the same. So this is another factor that I think we have to take into consideration when we're looking at the future of the Pokemon card market, and especially as we move into 2021. Now, if that wasn't enough, really you can add on top of all of this. Now, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the economy, but I think it has something greatly to do with the overall demand. And that is in 2021, we also have the 25th anniversary of the Pokemon brand. So you can expect that Pokemon as a company is going to be putting their best foot forward to try to have the best products that they can, the products that they feel will sell the best out there. And, you know, we haven't gotten out of the pandemic just yet. And a lot of that manpower that has been utilized in the past to mass produce products, I don't necessarily think that it will necessarily be there when a lot of these products are trying to hit the market. So I think in that manner, supply is going to be limited as well. And then you add on top of that the fact that the Summer Olympics are to occur in Tokyo, Japan. Now, Pokemon is one of the biggest brands in Japan, and you can expect that for the Olympics, there is going to be a lot of promotion from the Pokemon Company around that big event. And it will be the first big event that we've really had people coming out of the pandemic. And if it does in fact happen, that will be the first event where many people are coming together and kind of surrounding and congregating around one event. So you can expect that Pokemon is definitely going to promote themselves highly during that time. So these are all things that I have been considering here, guys. You know, one of the things that I would recommend, and I talked about it in the last podcast with Polish Rob, is that for me, being a finance guy, I really try to take a look at everything from the macro approach. Pokemon as a market, as a hobby, as an investment, it doesn't just exist in a vacuum. There are other extraneous factors that we have to take into consideration when we're trying to forecast where we think the market is going to go, where the demand is going to be, where the supply may potentially be, so that we can have a better idea and so that all of you can be better positioned to make good decisions when you're looking at your investing approach for these assets. So for me personally, I think we definitely have a perfect storm of a lot of different factors working together. I think if you thought that 2021 was a big year for Pokemon cards, I would say just wait, because 2021 is going to be even bigger. And I know many of you out there are probably saying to yourselves, well, this is probably the worst thing because so many people are going to be priced out of the market. And yes, that may very well be the case. But what I always try to promote on this channel, and what I always try to allow you guys to uncover, is opportunities, is different ways that you guys can go about your investing and your collecting that isn't always surrounded around, top tier products or products that you do see in very short supply. There really are opportunities out there for everybody, but I think going into 2021, we are definitely going to have to work a little bit harder to uncover those opportunities, but that's why we've got great resources out there and we are all building this community together. So what I would leave you guys with from this conversation is that no matter what happens in the economy, in the Pokemon card market, you always have to just put your best foot forward and pay your due diligence and uncover the opportunities where they exist, because they will always be there. So don't feel discouraged, guys. Don't think that this video is to try to dissuade you from becoming an investor or a collector or furthering your investments or your collection. What this is meant to do is to essentially just give you the broader picture on things so that you can have a better perspective on how you should proceed moving on into the future. So that is going to do it for today. All of my fellow navigators, thank you so much for your support. Guys, if you have any questions in relation to this topic, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. You can also reach out to me through my Instagram or through my email. Those links are both in the description below as well. Other than that, guys, you have a great rest of your week. My name is PokéNav. I'm here to help you navigate the world of Pokemon one video at a time, and I will see you all in the next video.